Thank you, everybody. Before I get to the crux of my remarks, I just want to parenthetically say that we have a special birthday in the House today for someone who's been a champion of this issue. Susan, where are you, Susan? Susan Rosenthal is turning 80 years old. And I know by saying that she's turning 80, I've lost all credibility for anything else I say today. Let me just say a few words. I'm going to talk about one issue. As an old constitutional law professor, and that's the Second Amendment. Because there are these bills are perfectly written, they're perfectly timed. There are certain people who should not have guns, people who are dangerous, and we know who they are. And there's certain types of guns that people shouldn't have, that no civilian should have. Weapons of mass destruction, weapons designed to do nothing but kill large groups of people very quickly. And there is no real argument against that. How can you argue that we should allow, without background checks, violent felons to get guns that can shoot 100 rounds at a time? There is no argument. And they don't even argue the merits. So instead, they fall back on a blanket argument that all of these things, we don't have to discuss whether they're good or bad policy, because they all violate the Second Amendment. And I'm here to say today that anyone who says that has no idea what they're talking about. They have no idea how constitutional law is interpreted. No right is absolute. We have a First Amendment right to free speech, but there's lots of speech that the government can restrict. You can't yell fire in a crowded theater. You can't libel someone. You can't lie in advertising. There are a whole host of types of speech. The Fifth Amendment says you have a right to not to testify or not to be forced to speak against yourself. But there's an exception, ironically, for public safety. If there's an immediate public safety concern, they can make you do that. So on issue after issue, there is no absolute right. And the way the courts look at this is they balance the impact on the right versus the interest the state has in that right. So if there's a compelling, in that law, so if there's a compelling state interest, and stopping violence and slaughter on the street is a compelling state interest, everyone agrees with that, then we can have reasonable restrictions that do not unduly affect the person's Second Amendment rights. So for example, 1 gun a month. Allowing someone to buy 1 gun a month and their spouse to buy 1 gun a month, they can buy 1 gun, 2 guns per family every month. In a year, you could have 24 guns per family. In 10 years, you could have 240 guns per family. You could invade a small country. This is hardly a radical plan to disarm America, and there is no impact on the Second Amendment of a law like that. So when someone tells you that it violates the Second Amendment to have background checks, that it violates the Second Amendment to have a lost and stolen bill, that it violates the Second Amendment to have a limit on the number of guns bullets you can have in a magazine, they have no idea what the Second Amendment means. Most of them haven't read it. Most of them don't know, have never read any of the interpretations of it. They use it as a crutch to stop anything with the word gun in it, despite the slaughter in our streets. And we've got to start pushing back on that and make it clear that the Second Amendment allows. The Second Amendment is not a suicide pact. The Second Amendment is not a suicide pact. And we can have a right to bear arms and a safe society at the same time. And that's what we have to make clear. Thank you very much, everybody.